Hey everybody, Wolf Driver. Once again, sticking to that Tuesday schedule. We're a little later today. Actually, last week we were on this time. So exciting stuff for you. In the background, while I'm talking and everything going on, and we'll relate a lot to it, you can see I've got the 4 dogs on 3 treadmills. It's a little bit of a challenge there. So I'm going to talk about today about what the treadmill does for them. I'm going to introduce you. In case if you follow me, you've probably seen RoboTogo. So that's basically a dog robot. I didn't invent it, and actually they've actually taken RoboTogo. That's what I call it. It's a G2 or something, G Pro robot from Unitree, and this is their bottom end model. So they have models that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. They make them for research purposes, scientific purposes, and probably for big amusement park kind of like interactions. He is RoboTogo. I call him that because I want to honor Togo, the lead sled dog. So he's one of the lead sled dogs for the Great Serum Race, what they call it. If you're not familiar with that, that's when they had a breakout of, I'm going to say this wrong, I know it, Dysphoria or Diphtheria, some kind of breakout of disease in Nome, Alaska. And years ago, I'm talking, I don't know if it was in the 20s or the 50s. Someone out there could probably educate me on that. But this disease broke out and they had serum for it. To get the serum to cure the disease, to give it to all the people, and I think it affected children mostly, they needed a way to get it from wherever they had it in Alaska to Nome. And the problem was it was like 1,100 miles, I guess, away from Nome, and the transportation at that time was very limited, as you can imagine, and there was snow and there was all kinds of Arctic like conditions. So they said, hey, what we do here is we dog sled. Let's get it by not just one team of dogs. They had relay teams of dogs because of the long distance. And that's how the Iditarod came about. That kind of honors what they call the Great Serum Race, or Great Serum Run. So Balto is one of the most famous dogs from there, and there's always a argument, if you will, or question: was Balto more of the lead dog? They were different teams, or he didn't do as much work as Togo did. Togo was the real hero. I don't know. I didn't research it enough. Of course, I wasn't there. But Balto gets a lot of the credit when Togo's pretty important too, if not more important. But what they all did, all the dogs working together, these big sled dog teams, got the serum to Nome, and they did what at the time nothing else could. No, there was no way else to get it there. So they saved the area, basically the people there. And Balto's honored. There's a statue for him in Central Park in New York, and for Togo there's a statue up north at one of these places. It's actually, I think, a company headquarters for one of the big companies that from my understanding or what I recall, put a statue there for him. So I'm calling him RoboTogo, kind of robot dog. He is a robot dog. Again, I didn't invent it, I just named it that, but I'm the first one probably going to use it with sled dogs. So I introduced my dogs to it, and I do all this. People say, oh, Wolf Driver, why do you do all this crazy stuff? The Huskies, they make me crazy. They make anybody crazy. They're contagious, though. Once you have one, you want more. So the Huskies need to be constantly challenged. And that's what this is all about. And it's all about their enrichment. Now, they're challenged when they can not only engage their mind or their physical side, but their psychological side, their mind. And what you see here with the treadmills, if you're watching that now, I don't know what my producer has on there, is basically physical enrichment. It's not psychological enrichment per se, except for the two in the center where you've got Inyo and Lola, because they're working in a tighter quarters, and that's what that's all about, spatial training. And they are 2 dogs on 1 treadmill is challenging on that limited, narrow footprint. But of course, I do that, Wolf Driver, and I know which dogs are more appropriate for that. Eventually, I'd like to get the other 2 that match up really well, which is Cyan and Nikita. But right now, they're not fixed. Going to fix them in the future, but they're not fixed, and they're a little too competitive with each other. So I have them on the ends. They can run next to each other. It's just that in the limited space that you see Lola and Inyo, that's a little more challenging, and that's a workout in itself. So that's why I have them going slower. Plus, they're not the speed demons. They're not the engaging or as active as dogs usually as Nikita and Cyan. And that probably goes back to them being fixed and the other two not being fixed. Because when we fix our dogs and we spay or neuter them, they lose some of that some of their hormones, which is a good thing, but also in some ways it can be a bad thing. It can make them lazy. So they might have a little bit of that going on. And because Nikita and Cyan are not altered, they still have all their hormonal effects, so they still have a lot of drive. And that's why they're a little testy with each other, because they're very competitive. So if you know how to use that to the advantage of the dogs, getting them the best possible engagement, then that becomes a really important factor to them. So, and we've got Philip Peters. Hello. Hey, thanks so much for the comment. Everybody out there, please stop in, say hello, give me a comment, ask me a question, tell me you love me, tell me you hate me, whatever the case may be. I appreciate it all, because it starts conversation here. And the real part of everything I do, sharing wise, is for the betterment of all dogs, because there's so much misunderstanding. Karen Baker, morning, Wolf and beautiful girls. Good morning, Karen. So great to see you. And thank you so much for showing up and engaging here. I really appreciate it. And all your comments and all your likes and support. I really appreciate that. So yeah, it's all about the betterment of dogs. I talk about this a lot, but it's important for everybody to know. I share because, and it's a lot of work to share, but I enjoy logging these memories. Most importantly, again, I talk about the betterment of all dogs. So these dogs get such a terrible rap because many people don't understand them, and there's so much misinformation out there. And nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, very few people think outside of the box. So we're living in a modern day world here, and only few people will think outside of the box. And some of those people don't have the knowledge of someone like me that's been doing it for so many years. And I don't know it all. I'm never claiming to, but for what I do, I know a lot, and I've learned a lot. So that's why I share it. Ruth Schlabach. I know I'm saying that wrong. Beautiful babies you got there. Thank you so much, Ruth. I truly appreciate it. And they are wonderful girls. I've had generations of Huskies that I absolutely love. They're my family. And that's what's so great about what I do, Dog Motorsports, because I've got, relatively speaking, for people that mush, a small team. And so it enables me to do a lot of family stuff with them, as well as get out there and work them in a sled dog kind of fashion. Now, they're living the kind of life that's more of a, how can I say it, a spoiled Siberian Husky would live, because of everything we do and because of the way they're pampered. So I know people see them out on the sled and they're like, oh my gosh, why are you making those dogs pull you? They don't realize that the sled's motor powered, and they don't have to pull. And dogs 15 years old can do it, which I've done with my generations of dogs. And dogs as small as toy breeds, like my 14-pound Chinese Crested, can do it. So obviously they don't have to pull, and a lot of times they're not pulling. On the treadmill, they're getting, so the dogs on the end, which, if you know me, they're Cyan and Nikita. Cyan's got a gray wolf coat, they call that. She's got the blue eyes with what looks like a wolf coat or a gray wolf coat, and that's the actual name of her coat. Nikita's more of a, and they're like a gouty Huskies, where they're dirty faced, or more of a solid face, if you will. They've got more solid colorings. Nikita's more of a, she's a little bit more of an anomaly, where she's like I call her a Cocoa or a brown Husky, just not as common in Husky breeds. My veterinarian always had said to me, "You sure she's a Husky?" I've got papers on her, but that doesn't mean anything. And I kind of rescued her, so that adds to it. Gianna Dodwell. I'm saying that wrong. I'm sorry. Beautiful seeing Huskies that are biologically fulfilled. Love what you do. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support from everybody, especially because I go out there on social media and I take a beating. I mean, I'm like standing in front of if I'm showing my age a little bit here, like Mike Tyson, and getting pounded lefts and rights and lefts all over the place, because people a lot of times are they don't understand, again. And because when they comment, I don't mind asking questions, but a lot of times I get attacked, which I don't mind either, because it stimulates or promotes conversation, which talks about the betterment, which I could talk about the betterment of the breeds. Cheryl Kovac, I think they They think they're walking. Love all the faces, especially. Love all this. Carry on. Thank you so much, Cheryl. I truly can't tell you how much I appreciate all your support and everything. All your chiming in. I get a lot of laughs out of it. You're very funny. Again, great sense of humor. I love it. I appreciate it greatly.
We got a couple comments.
Okay, a couple comments we're going to read here, folks, on Instagram and TikTok.
TikTok, Camry says, so true, I have 3 Malamutes. LOL.
Camry on TikTok says, so true. I have 3 Malamutes. Lots of laughs. Thanks, Camry. It's, it's so true. People don't understand the working capacity of these dogs and everything they do. It's truly amazing. It's a scientific wonder, their metabolism capabilities. People don't even understand that. So Yvonne Daniels, good afternoon to you and yours. Thank you so much, Yvonne. So wonderful to see you. Really appreciate you stopping by and giving us a shout out. Yeah, like I'm saying, it's people don't understand. So people, well, why do you have these treadmills? These dogs need to be busy. Sometimes it's like 24 hours a day if it's not enough work. So that's why I try to give them a really fulfilled day and give them a day's rest in between, because they're just nonstop. Another comment on Instagram, folks.
I am Lorena Freitas.
I am Lorena Freitas. Sorry for saying that wrong.
Hello from Brazil. You guys are so cool.
Hello from Brazil. You guys are so cool. Thank you so much again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, folks. Keep the comments, keep the love, keep everything coming. I really appreciate it. We got another one.
We got another one from On Journal with Love. Hi, Bill. It's Kel. Great to see you and your dog.
Amon Journal with Love. Hi, Bill. It's EL. Great to see you and your dogs. I know who you are. Great to see you. Thank you so much, LL, for tuning in. I really appreciate it so much. So it's I can't tell you how much I really appreciate the support, because it helps propagate the love of Huskies really inside. So talking about them, and most importantly, people understanding them. So people wind up with this breed for more reasons than I can mention here. I mean, the dire wolves from the Game of Thrones. Cheryl Gilchrist. Hello, Cheryl. Great to see you. Thank you so much. Cheryl goes way back in the day with Wolf Driver when we did some of our first live broadcasts. Good afternoon to you too. And I remember talking to her on a live broadcast way back in the day. It was amazing. And I'm going back at least 10 years ago when Facebook first started letting us have live streams. So thanks, Cheryl. And thanks for all your support over the years. So with the Huskies, people will get them usually because of their looks. Like I said, dire wolves in the Game of Thrones, Balto or Togo, the movies, going to the Snow Dogs, whatever the case may be with Cuba Gooding Jr., Snow Dogs, etc. And they get these dogs, and they're so cute, of course, as puppies. I mean, all puppies are cute, but the Huskies are like little wolves. Cheryl Gilchrist, did you feed the other dogs the way you feed your Huskies now? So Cheryl wants to know if I feed the new dogs the way I fed, the way I used to feed the old dogs and one of my previous generations. And I do, Cheryl. Actually, I've got some live broadcast and some videos. If you thumb through the channel, I know it's so hard to find on Facebook. There's no real good way, or on all social media, to categorize it. So I've set it up on my websites, but I feed them all frozen raw foods, which is really interesting. And if you haven't seen me do that, please tune in for that. Thanks for bringing that up, Cheryl. Always appreciate it. Rod, Instagram comment. Rolling and strolling. Where am I located? So we are in close to Baltimore, Maryland. That's where we're out of. But remember, I travel the East Coast of the USA, sometimes as much as twice a week, but almost always at least once a week, to give my dogs a different adventure every week. We've gone as far as Massachusetts, the Cape Cod Rail Trail, to Tennessee, to real close to Virginia Creeper Trail, which is right near the border of Tennessee. Hey, Rod.
Stephanie on TikTok.
Stephanie on TikTok comment. Could I share the brands of the foods that Cheryl was talking about? So some of the main foods I'm using right now, and I'm not saying they're the end all be all. There's a lot of good foods out there, especially when you're talking frozen raw foods. At least that works for me. That's not always a guarantee to work for everybody, though. And depending what you're feeding, if it works for you and you feel good about it, you're veterinarian, you're getting good health reports, etc., there's no reason to change per se. But I'm using Primal frozen foods. I'm using Northwest Naturals frozen foods. I use let me think about this for a second. Steve's frozen foods. And all these different foods, for one reason or another, I use them because, like, Steve's has goat milk in it. Northwest Naturals has different proteins that I can't get, or different proteins combos and other ones. Primal, same thing. They have a venison protein, which I like, but I use their other proteins too. And they've got a new one, duck. The duck has fish and it has turkey, I believe, in it. So it's got 3 proteins in one. It's pretty interesting. Then we've got, after that, we've got Instinct Raw, Green Juju, and there's a couple more I can't think of off the top of my head. Canine Cravings, and there's 1 or 2 more, and I'll try to get a list of that. Go to iFeedBarf, BARF, standing for Bones and Raw Food.com, and you can learn more. Thank you. Yes, Rod says we have another question here. Rolling and Strolling from Instagram, that is, says awesome. Rolling and Strolling from the Netherlands. Thank you so much. It's so cool that you can connect with so many people all over the world. And I used to do live streams, and I hope to do it one day again from the back of the dog cart. And Cheryl Gilchrist, who was just commenting here a few minutes ago, she remembers that because we did that, and we were doing it at night. So if you see my recent post, I was out there in the dark at night on the C&O Canal, going through a canal, one of the old canal aqueducts, and people got an idea, because it was really dark, of what it's like to be out there. It's a little challenging. So Cheryl says, because that was the first time I've seen you feed the dog, so I did see that why I asked, because I have followed you all this time, and that was the first time I've ever seen you do that. Awesome. And even the little one eats like that. So great question, Cheryl. Thanks so much again. So Cheryl's asking, she said that was the first time she see anyone feed like that. And yeah, the ghost hunts too, we used to do. And she wanted to know if the little dogs, we have a little Chinese Crested. We've had another one before the one we have now, another generation. And believe it or not, the Chinese Crested eats the raw frozen foods too. She prefers it raw instead of de-thawed. Though sometimes I'll de-thaw them depending on what I'm feeding them, but it's crazy. And there's the question, are they digesting all the nutrients? Well, it's worked for me for many years. I've talked to my veterinarian about it. Now, the northern breed dogs, like my Huskies, they have the ability to eat frozen foods, but weren't so sure about the Chinese Crested, but she seems to be doing well with it. So Cynthia Felsher-Hellman, how convenient. Replying to Cheryl Gilchrist, Cheryl, yes, he feeds our Chinese Crested the same foods and she loves it, even frozen. Crazy. Exactly what I was saying. Thank you, Cynthia. So it's so true that it's amazing what the dogs can do, and they've evolved that way. Especially, like I say, the northern breeds, you wouldn't think it from the Chinese Crested because she's a toy breed at 14 pounds, not a northern breed. She still prefers it frozen. Maybe because she wants to emulate or be like her big sisters here. I don't know, but it works. Rod said we have another comment here. Minky says, hi, very nice puppies. Thank you so much, Minky. I truly appreciate it. Cynthia Felsher-Hellman says, hello. Hello, Cynthia. And again, keep it coming, folks. Keep the comments. I love it. And I'll answer pretty much any question you might have. And a lot of people want to know, because I'm doing stuff, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I'm doing stuff nobody else out there is doing. When you see these 4 dogs on the treadmill, that's not so unusual in the canine fitness world. But putting 2 dogs on a narrow treadmill, that's a little pushing the limits. And I do that because I understand my dogs, and I've done this for many years working with dogs on treadmills, and I understand how it works. And I also understand that Lola and Inyo, the 2 on the treadmill there, need to be challenged a little differently than Cyan and Nikita, the 2 on the end, because they're not, keep in mind, the treadmill is not what I would call psychological enrichment, because there's no smells, there's no different sights, there's no different sounds. So it's just the treadmill. So it's physical enrichment, but not true psychological enrichment. When I put those 2 next to each other, it becomes a little more psychological enrichment, because they are challenged now. They're challenged to keep a narrow footprint, and they're challenged to work with each other in a capacity that is what sled dogs do, but not in this kind of environment. So it's really interesting. Of course, everything I do is more than safe, but I'm there in front of them. Now, if I wasn't with them, it would be a different story. But I've taught them everything you see here, and it's not that hard to teach a dog to use a treadmill, but in the capacity that Lola and Inyo are on, it's a little harder. They are absolutely appreciating the work. They're challenged by it. And even Inyo, she'll turn a little bit because she's concerned about the curb of the treadmill, the side of it, that there's nothing there could hurt her no matter what she does. It'll turn off automatically if she steps wrong, etc. But it's interesting. They're the dynamics. That's what I'm looking for, to see how the dynamics are shared and how everything works. And then they're actually better for out on the trail, because when we get to situations, really narrow footprints, going through tunnels, passing over really narrow bridges, doing anything that requires a lot of, let's say, a lot of confidence, they're building it here. And from Cheryl Gilchrist, and they are well behaved, but I'm sure they have their moments. Great. That's such a great point, Cheryl. So they are really well behaved. Now, all the activity, you know, the saying, a tired dog is a good dog. How true is that? And that's the problem with so many of these high energy breeds like Huskies that are super intelligent and super energetic, high prey drives, that playing a game of fetch. Somebody asked me on social media earlier this week, do they ever get to be just dogs? It was a great question. They are just dogs. Well, how should I say this? They are my family, but they get to be their kind of dogs, breed specific kind of dogs, if I'm saying that right, all the time, because of all the exercise and adventuring we do. So it's almost like sensory overload, but it's almost exactly what a Husky needs. This high intelligence really makes them super curious, and they want to entertain themselves if there's not enough outlets for them to be entertained. So that's why a lot of times they'll break out of their homes, whether they are in a crate at night or when you feed them. They want to get out. They'll find a way a lot of times. Crates I have not so much, but a lot of people get where the Husky, I went to work, I left my Husky in the crate, and it destroyed the crate, and it can hurt itself. Now, my dogs are super happy. They go in the crate all the time. They want to be in their crate because they're fulfilled. They're content because I throw so much at them. And again, the treadmill works one thing, but when they get out into the great outdoors and they can explore their surroundings and get to different surroundings, not just walking in the neighborhood every time, but getting out to a different trail, smelling different animals that might be indigenous or more prevalent in a region, that drives them and tantalizes their mind. Cheryl Gilchrist, beautiful dogs and very well cared for, very well cared for. They're your heart because they are sure your family. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. People see me out there and they're like, oh my gosh, they're making these dogs pull you. They have no idea. And I welcome those comments because it gives me a platform to explain myself and to link them to some of my websites and some of the information that they can learn more about. And then they can understand why I do what I do. And if they have a Husky or they want to get a breed like a Husky, they better are equipped to understand them properly. We've got a question here, Rod, my producer says. Yes, Rod.
Follow up on
EL with a follow-up on Instagram. Loves so much again for that comment. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Just some of the craziest things, like we use the RoboTogo, I call it, the dog robot. The reason we did that, or I do that, is just to give them, it's like playing with a big toy, though it's not really a toy. It's actually that was designed for educational and human entertainment purposes, not child entertainment purposes. When we learn to work it, which we're doing properly, its interaction with the dogs can tantalize again or entertain their brain and give them, pique their curiosity, give them an outlet to explore that part of their mind. And I call that technological enrichment, because we're using technology to enrich them, because we can't give them other animals per se to play with, because a lot of times Huskies are hunters and they prey especially upon small animals. Now, I've interacted generations of my Huskies with cows and horses. There's videos of me out there racing horses, quote unquote. We didn't really race them, but it was a run around a horse racetrack for actually a few hours. We wore the horses out. They were more drafting horses. They weren't race horses. So we wore them out. They had to change out the horses, but they were big Belgians, kind of like Clydesdales. And we actually did, you got to see it on one of my websites on wolfdriver.com. We actually, it was probably one of the most incredible things I've ever done. What we used to go, and we still do, to different farms. This particular farm was a horse equine farm, and they boarded horses there. And one of the gentlemen that owned a bunch of the horses, these Belgians, these big Belgian race horses, drafting horses, he saw us out there. He's like, "Could I get my horses with your dog's pictures or videos?" And we set this up, and he brought out a professional trainer that rode them, that they put a cart on. And I had my dog, electric dog sled on wheels. My dog cart is basically what it is. And we ran around this horse track, and it was like one of the most coolest interactions and dynamics that you might see. Actually, some of the horses needed blinders. Christy Loudon. Hey, Christy. So good to see you. Thanks so much for tuning in and all your support. I really do appreciate it. Christy's been pretty active on a lot of my Wolf Driver posts lately, and I appreciate that, Christy. And you've asked me some great questions. Thank you so much. If you had cool to watch, check it out. Yeah, Cynthia said it's cool to watch. Check it out. You've got to see this horse interaction video. To date, it's probably, and I've done some cool stuff, probably one of the coolest things I ever did in my life with my dogs. Now, this was a generation ago. None of these dogs were there, but at the racetrack, we're in Maryland, which is a kind of an equine state. I mean, the Preakness is in Maryland. So there's a lot of horse farms. This particular horse farm was one of the few that has a legitimate regulation racetrack. So Sean Donnelly. Hello, Sean. Great to see you, Sean. Thanks so much for tuning in. My producer says we have another question, Rod, from Instagram. From JKWC 365. Am I a dog person or a cat person? I'll tell you what, I'm an animal person. I love all animals. Even like spiders when they're in my house, or bees or anything, I catch them to let them out because I can't hurt anything living. It's just in my nature. So I love all animals. I've had cats growing up, and I've never had any of my own real farm animals, but I go to all these farms. If you see me, I adventure. I actually rent access to a couple farms. I used to do it to more, actually, where there's a lot of livestock, a lot of farm animals, from horses, as I talked about, to cattle, to chickens, to there's no pigs where we go, but there's some potbelly pigs, I believe. So I love all animals, and one of the coolest dynamics to me is seeing different animals interact with each other safely. And what I mean by that is, my dogs, even these dogs, are pretty good around cattle and horses, big animals. And even we have the small dog, Gigi, the small Chinese crested. They're good with that. I love watching their interaction. Huskies are usually not a kind of breed you want with small animals because they're hunters, and they will a lot of times try to kill it, whether it's even small dogs, but especially like chickens, mice come through your yard, squirrels. So I think a lot of people understand that. So my dogs, whatever animals I have, I try to train them to be as cooperative as possible with these dogs, with the dogs like we have Gigi. And these dogs, you think your dog doesn't have a bad bone in their body until they get around a small animal, and instantaneously they hurt it majorly or fatally. But when we go to these farms, and sometimes there's wild animals, that's why a lot of times you'll see me doing the dog roading where they're connected to the ATV. I've had other generations of Huskies off leash, and no matter how good and how well trained they are, instinct is hard to adjust in them. So their instinct is to be hunters. They're prey driven. So we get to a farm, and there's tall fields a lot of times during the spring and summer and even the fall. And the tall grasses, the corn crops, whatever, even soybeans, they get taller than the dog. So I would have 2 or 3 dogs go in there, and I figured no problem. I got them on my GPS remote. They're trained on my voice for recall. And all of a sudden I see a little animal come out, and I see the other dog or 2 that wasn't in that farm field ready for that animal. When that animal comes out, they grab it. So they work like a team. It's almost like a wolf pack. From Sugar Glider, is that an Apple headwear? Yes, this is the Apple Vision Pro, and I'm using it. Great question. Thank you so much. I'm using it so I can see all the comments instantly. Now, all the comments are not streamlined into one window, unfortunately, because of the software we're using. So my producer has to read me some from TikTok and Instagram, but this gives me instant access so I can respond to everybody, because I know people tune in for a quick second and they're out of there. So I want to be able to respond as quickly as possible. Great question. Thank you, Sugar Glider. So it was amazing, the dynamic to see these dogs hunt. And it caught me off guard the first time. I was like, what the hell just happened? So usually if I see another animal and they see it, I can tell the dogs no. And they stay back with me. But when that other animal is inside of a tall field where I can't see anything, they chase it out. The other dog or two grab it. It's like, what? It's like mind blowing. And it happens so quick. And all of a sudden that animal has a big problem. Lisa Lalita True. I know I'm saying that wrong. I apologize. Hi from, and I can't recognize your flag, but I'm sorry. Glad to have caught a live feed. It's really interesting to see the videos and your explanations and hearing your experiences with the dogs. I became interested after moving 3 years ago to Greenland. Ah, that's where you're at. Thank you. The dogs are only active during winter, so wasn't sure if they could be run in warmer weather. What is the warmest temperature you can run them? Great question, and thank you so much, Lisa. And that's where so much of this misunderstanding comes in. Warm temperatures and huskies, and rightfully so, because there's not really any dogs out there that are efficient or really good at cooling. They're really sensitive to warm temperatures. And take my Chinese Crested, for instance. She's hairless for the most part, a little bit of hair on the head, on the paws, but not much on the body at all. She gets more heated up quicker than the huskies that are long-haired woolly huskies. So they're double-coated woolly. Woolly means double-coated long hair. She gets hotter quicker than they do because she's got no protection. So people are like, do you shave the huskies in the summer for the heat to help them cool themselves better? That's one of the biggest no-nos in the world. You never want to shave a double-coated dog unless it's for medicinal purposes. It will never help them cool. It'll actually work in reverse. They'll get hotter quicker. So what happens is in the warmer months, they shed their undercoat. Their guard hairs, or what they call their top coat, will help keep them cool and protect them against sunburn, against grass. It'll also keep any breeze they're exposed to flowing evenly through their hair to help cool them. So it's not that you can take it, that doesn't mean you can take them out in warmer temperatures per se, but you can take them out when it's not too hot. You can take them out in warmer temperatures if the coat is maintained properly, most importantly, and if you you know the limitations and you understand your dog. All dogs are different. So for me, I've actually made a little graph or made a little explanation of parameters of what my procedures are. And Lisa, I'll refer you there and I'll explain it to you. So that's on mushcool.com. So mushcool.com. COOL.com, mushcool.com. And I talk about the problem is you can't just identify a certain temperature because humidity plays a factor there too. The humidity factor, they call it, sometimes some people will say the feel like temperature or the wind chill temperature, etc., where it's less or more than the actual temperature. And you feel that. You might sweat more. The dogs are going to be hotter in more humid conditions. And of course, in the colder conditions, it depends on the dog, but usually a double-coated dog like a husky likes it as cold as you can get it, or at least in the part of the world we're at, they say something like 70 below zero they can go till. But so what I do is I have them groomed monthly. That helps maintain their coat so it can be as effective as possible and regulate their body temperature as much as possible. Doesn't mean they can lay out there or work in the sun, but because of the activities we're doing with a properly maintained coat, we can go in warmer temperatures. And what I mean by that is dog motorsports. Dog motorsports, almost all the rigs have motors, so they're motor propelled. So basically, it's nothing more than a glorified dog walk. So if it's too hot to walk the dog, obviously we can't go out there. But when it's warmer conditions that you wouldn't mush a dog or work a dog, you can still get the dog out there for some psychological enrichment, like I like to say, because it's like they're going for a walk. They can smell all the smells, they can see all the sights, they can hear all the sounds, and they can engage their mind. When it's when the proper conditions are happening. And they're still getting some light physical activity because they're getting a walk, they're getting to stretch their bones. It's all about the mobility. They're getting all the good stuff from it. So now when it's too hot, and you got it, this is where it gets tricky, because if we go to a trail, we don't want that trail out there in the sun, because it still might be in the 70s, which is borderline. I mean, we sometimes will be out there in the 80s even, depending on the humidity conditions and depending how much shelter we have from the sun. If there's a big tree canopy, if we're going to be in the woods, it's going to be a lot more doable than being out there in the sun, because the sun's going to heat up all aspects of the trail and of the dogs, beating on the dogs. So it becomes, their mushers have a formula. Sometimes it'll be like 120. And what that means is the temperature and the humidity combined, if it's more than 120, they won't go. And that's not always a fail-safe, accurate explanation. And that's not what I live by. My website explains all the different intricacies and details I use. Sometimes we do get out there and it feels like it's too warm. It's not the conditions the weatherman said for that area we're at. That's why we travel the East Coast, though, to find the coolest conditions, especially in the summer. A lot of times going at night is the best bet, because the humidity and the temperatures are usually lower. And then we're accessible to, in our range, to a lot of mountains, that when you go in the mountains, you're really talking about getting even cooler temperatures usually. But that all can change from time to time, and from weather patterns to weather patterns. So, but I also use, and you might know this and you'll see it on mushcool.com, different thermometers to measure the ambient temperature, because what they tell you, I'm pointing to my watch on the cell phone tower, that's where that's from. And what they tell you can differentiate from the exact conditions you're at. So I'll use ambient temperature. I'll use a laser thermometer to get the ground, and the humidity, and I'll even use a thermometer to measure the dog's temperature sometimes. Christy Loudon, got to get back to grooming these dogs. Awesome info as always. Catch you guys later. Christy, thank you so much. I truly, truly appreciate all your support, and thanks for tuning in. So these temperatures are all put into my brain. Sometimes it's a scary thought what goes on in there, but and I'm computing everything, and most importantly, I'm seeing how the dogs are reacting, and I'm measuring them through their body posture and through all the different ways I've mentioned. And I can usually get an insight, hey, this is getting too hot for them, or this is really good for them. We need to find a waterway to cool down on them. Sometimes you get out there and it's borderline and they start engaging. I can usually regulate that engagement, but if they want to push into their harness, like I talk about some of the activities we do, push to mush, dog roading, or they want to run a little harder and I'm holding them back, which I can usually, again, I call it control their exertion level. But they're fighting it because they really want to engage, because it's borderline and they got excited by something or whatever. Then I might find, well, I need to cool them down. And that's why we're almost always running near the rivers and streams and waterways, so we can walk them down there and let them properly, fully submerge their pads and maybe even their underbelly. That's where their internal organs are closest to in their body. And that's really an effective way of cooling them down. It's like they're reborn again. It's amazing when you see how effective it is to cooling the dogs down. I've done that many a times. So you still have to be really careful how you do that. But warmer temperatures, they can do their stuff in. They can, to a certain extent, get the enrichment aspect and get some of this exercise I talk about without fully engaging. And then they're ready. They're conditioned all year long. This summer for us was really challenging in Maryland because, and I think a lot of places on the East Coast, because it was really humid. That was just brutal, and a lot of high temperatures. It almost made it impossible. That's why we did a lot of treadmill work, as you see here, and a lot of lighter activities just at home. So traveling takes out of the dogs too. It's part of the enrichment process, but the long traveling, mixing it with warm temperatures can be counterproductive. So that's why we didn't push the envelope and we didn't travel far this summer. Last summer was decent. We got out almost every week, at least once a week. The summer before was even cooler. I remember getting out twice a week a lot of times. So hope that answers your question, Lisa. Thanks so much. Now I know that flag's Greenland. And that Mush Cool website tells about all the specifics for how I gauge it. And again, it all revolves around the specifics of your dog and their individuality. Like Inyo is a dark dog, and because of her coat, even though they're so well insulated, darkness usually absorbs the light and the heat, therefore the sun. And I had white huskies, which actually reflects it. So I found they actually dealt with the warmer temperatures better than Inyo, who is the worst. She's most affected by the warmer temperatures, especially when you're talking about sunlight. So all of it's quite a balance. I will tell you that and I'm not bragging here, but all of my considerations and everything here is tried and true. That's why I mention it, but it can be different for you. So don't just go by my beliefs and what I do. But I've never had a dog overheat. So something is going right there, and it's so important to keep that in mind. So you see the treadmill here, and I wanted to mention on the treadmill, you'll see them sometimes drift back a little bit. You'll see them come forward a little bit. We try to find the right speed so they stay more forward, but you got to watch the dog individually. Do they start looking up in the air? Is their attention drawn somewhere else? That usually means their dogs are very one-track mind. As soon as you take their attention off what they're doing, they deviate their mind, and that can usually be the recipe for trouble. So what I do is I'll adjust the speed accordingly. Once they deviate from the activity at hand, I'll adjust the speed, usually add to it. Then they got to focus more on working the treadmill. So it's really interesting. And I love, again, the dynamics, love learning the body language, and love learning how their mind works, because it helps me out there on the trail, and it helps me give them the best life possible. So, Rod, I didn't catch the time. We didn't start the timer. How long have we been on? 43 minutes. Okay. So we're on still for a couple minutes, and I hope you're really getting to enjoy the show here. I love all the questions and comments and interaction. Wherever you're at, wherever you're watching this, feel free to shoot me anything you want. Question, comment. Again, you like what I'm doing, you dislike what I'm doing. I love to talk about it because it's the best way for me to learn and for others watching this interaction to learn. Again, the Huskies and you could see me when I bend down like that. Sorry, it takes the dogs out of the picture there for a second. I'm adjusting the speed accordingly. And from Lalita True again. Thanks. Is the middle treadmill a normal for people? And I guess the others are self-driven, which is more effective, or are they just different? Excellent question. So the first treadmill you're looking at here is dog driven. That's a dog trotter treadmill. They call it a slat mill treadmill. And with that, the dogs can power it. But I have another feature on this. I can make it electric too. So it can be motor driven, like traditional belt treadmills that you're more used to for humans. What that means is with older dogs, sometimes senior dogs, the reason I got that, or when you're training a dog to use a treadmill, it's sometimes a little more challenging to get them to propel it, especially when you get to a senior dog and they just can't, they don't have full functionality or the full range of motion because of arthritis or other health limited mobility diseases. So a little bit of electric helps them propel it, and it's coming at them so they still can get the exercise. The middle treadmill is a Nordic track treadmill that is designed for people. That's what it's made for. The reason I got that is because of it's kind of extreme. It has the ability to get a 40% grade, around 40%, which 45 would be halfway, 90s like that. So you imagine like 40% like that, which means I can really challenge these dogs, almost like climbing a mountain. It's designed for people for hiking capabilities, so you can really get a little more interactive. It's really cool because it's got a full display, because again, it's made for people. So you could put a program on there where the dogs are hiking or the people are hiking different, and it'll take you to like Mount Everest or it goes to all exotic locations where they have trainers and they're going through and they're walking with you. And as the level changes in the slightest way, the treadmill can go uphill or downhill, believe it or not. It can go like a 5% grade downhill. So that's good for me, because sometimes you'll get dogs like Inyo and Lola. Again, they're the two dogs on the Nordic track treadmill that are next to each other. It gives them, those dogs are less engaged. So if they start drifting back a little bit, I can make it downhill. Instead of, you keep reducing the speed, and sometimes it's so slow the dogs won't even walk. But I can keep up a little bit higher of a speed and put it in a downhill position. And it makes them more engaged, if you will. If I want to challenge them more, again, I can take it uphill. All these treadmills have inclines, but nothing like that Nordic track. And that being a people treadmill, it doesn't have quite as long as a belt. It's 60 inches, which the other treadmills are about 72 inches. And the long and narrow belt is more conducive to working the dogs, better for them. But with the variety here, I can really make it a complete workout. The last dog, Cyan, on the end, that's a belt-driven treadmill like the Nordic track. So they're strictly electric driven. The dogs can't propel them. And that one is a narrow one, as you see, and it's made for dogs. It's perfectly fine for her. Actually, it's a little oversized, but I'd rather be oversized. I always buy everything oversized. That's just my philosophy, because I can usually narrow the space or make it smaller if I need to for a dog, etc. But you can't make it longer like it is here. But that's an interesting treadmill. It's called Jog-a-Dog, because the speed increments is so incremental. It's got a dial on it, and it's so precise. You can take it up or take it down in the smallest of increments, which is good for training and when you get into senior dogs, etc. A dog like Cyan, you can crank that thing up. She's got her and Nikita had trotting on there at a moderate pace, nothing big. They've sprinted on these treadmills at 15 to 20 miles per hour. A trotting pace, we were on here for an hour, and that's a long time for a dog to be on a treadmill. These dogs are conditioned. But it's for Nikita and Cyan, they got about 4 miles in on the workout today, 4.5 miles for the hour. And Lola and Inyo got about 2.5 miles in on the hour, because I'm moving them slower again for the spatial aspect. I call it spatial training, and where they're next to each other, and it's more conducive to the way they do the treadmill. Haley Stevens, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I'm late working and watching. So great to see you, Haley. Again, I appreciate all your input and joining us and all your support. Really do. You have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching us. Rod, my producer, says we have another comment here. On Instagram, we got J.H. Durant. Hi from Medellin, Colombia. Wow, that's very cool. So very, very good. I wish I spoke a little Spanish there, but I don't, but my producer does. He's got me beat there. So, but I really appreciate you tuning in and the shout out and everything else. I hope that, Lisa, I hope that explained the treadmills to you. And I must always give the dogs a wind tunnel effect. I've got these Ego fans you can kind of get a view of. Some are the bigger, they make 2 models. Some are the bigger ones, some are the smaller ones. Ego's a brand that's typically available at a home, what do they call it? Home improvement store, Lowe's. So most places in the United States have Lowe's home improvement stores near them. So the Ego brand are kind of the professional series of equipment they make, and they make these really good batteries. And these fans are misting fans as well. Now, I won't mist them inside, but I use them outside even when running the dogs with the misting capacity or the misting effect working. So it sprays a light mist on them depending on where we're running. Again, those are one of the ways when I use my mushcool.com website, you can see me misting them and how I go about it. Some of the misting capabilities, the fans are actually built into the bike, or the electric dog sled on wheels, as I call it. So really cool stuff. Inside, we're just using the battery capacity, just using the fans for the wind effect. But keep in mind, the battery makes it so I can move it anywhere in the room without worrying about cords. So I'm usually working with the dogs myself in this capacity. So I need all this equipment to be as mobile as possible, where I can just grab it and put it on the particular dog I think needs it, or change a battery on the fly, or whatever I may need to do. In our video here, at the end, I will actually slow the dogs down. So I always, when we work the treadmill, I always give a little warm up and a cool down. Don't do it all the time. I try to when we get on the trail, because, they always say you're supposed to warm your muscles up before you engage them or fully engage them, and you're supposed to cool them down before you, instead of just dropping off and finishing the workout just like you're going off a cliff. but it's not always possible with the dogs. The cool down's a lot easier. The warm up, they are out of the gate. They're ready to go. And if you've watched me, they're usually very excited. I try to go slow in the beginning, but that usually doesn't happen. And again, that's why I do all the different training. So next time you see me on the treadmill, they might have weight vests on or a weighted collar. I do so many different aspects, like we were talking about the enrichment, because I keep challenging them. And all of the different physical challenges can help them be less injury prone, because when they get out there and they're playing really hard, because these dogs play really hard with each other, and they start wrestling and doing things that don't actually look normal to us people, they can, especially huskies, they can twist something, they can step on the ground wrong, anything can happen, and then God forbid you have something torn or they've injured themselves in some way. The more I can expose them to with working different muscles and strengthening, being as complete physical fitness program as I can for them. Again, I call it mushcrossfit.com. That's a website too, my website. The more less injury prone they can be, which really, really, I can't tell you, and I don't want to say this too loud, but I've never had a big injury on any of the dogs. I've been doing this for over 30 years, knock on wood, 20 gazillion times, because we're almost always doing something to keep them mobile. So that's really important. Now, you can have an injury. It doesn't mean, you've done something wrong. It's just some dogs are more prone to it. Sometimes I'll say because our activities are just one-dimensional. They're not as dimensional as we could make them by doing different exercises. So, and sometimes, things are hereditary. So you can't always tell if why an injury happened, etc. I like to go back and study videos and watch the dogs like the ones I'm showing here, watch how they're walking, favoring a side. And if you see her in the video, she's pushing a little bit too much to the left, and I put her on each side, and that's just probably the intimidation factor of the treadmill, because again, I call it spatial training. And when she feels being narrow, she feels safer going towards the center, which is fine. But I want her to even it out, where Lola is very comfortable just being in her lane. So when you see these different behaviors happening, you could try to address them or think in your mind, how can I make the dog straighten out? So I changed from the other side. I go from side to side and see if she's favoring a side. And it's not that, it's more the treadmill. But as she does it more, I find she's less and less likely to encroach in Lola's lane. And it's not affecting Lola. Lola's so great. She's dealing with it. She's like, yeah, whatever, Inyo. That'll translate to better trail mushing and better trail fitness, if you will. So that's why it's so important that we do it here in a more controlled environment. And I see it all, and I learn the different weaknesses or strengths of the dogs. So these dogs did this again for an hour. This was today. This was this morning. And they did absolutely fantastic on it. And that's the way I run them. And I don't always do 4 dogs. If you watch me, sometimes it'll be 2 dogs. Sometimes it'll be just 1 dog, depending on what we did before, depending which dog needs it the most. Lola, she gets older because, again, she's a couch potato. So she's more subject to having arthritis. She's a senior already. So 7 or 8 years old, she's going to have arthritis in her body. How much it's going to affect her, we don't know, but she's 8 right now. Cheryl Gilchrist, how old are these dogs? We're just talking about that. Great question. Thank you. So Nikita, she's the dog you're looking at now, the cocoa colored husky. She is 5 years, 3 months old. Lola, that's the next dog over, the more traditional looking husky. She's 8 years, 3 months old. Inyo, she's next to Lola. She's the all black dog, and I'm coming around. Nope, I didn't move there. I thought the camera had moved. She's 5 months and 3 years old, so she's the exact age of Nikita. And it just happens they're both 5'3". I don't know how that worked out because they came from different people. And the dog on the end, Cyan, with the gray wolf coat I talked about, she is she's just 4 years old. I think she's like 3 years, 9 months, something like that. Don't have her exact age in my head, but pretty close there. She is Cyan. So with Lola, got to start looking out for mobility issues with arthritis, because she's hitting what they consider a senior husky. I've had huskies doing my dog motorsports, other generations, doing like 15 years old, still doing it. Now they would go for a mile or two. then I'd put them up in a specialized seat or trailer that I had for them, and the other dogs would carry the load essentially. Dog motorsports, nobody has to really pull anything. Cheryl again, sorry, I ended up with a phone call, so I didn't know that's what you were doing, but I was wondering their ages, what their ages were. Thank you. No, that's great. I wasn't mentioning all their ages. I appreciate all the questions, Cheryl. No worries at all. Thank you. Darlene Poston, I love how you enrich their lives by doing what they love to do. I have 2 huskies that bounce off the walls, lots of laughs. I commend you for caring for them so much. Hands yellow, heart red. Thank you so much, Darlene. Yes, they bounce off the walls. And, you know, I always say I learned everything I know from all my huskies because I've been there and done that. Actually, real quickly, I'll tell you, I got my first husky back in 95, and he was cute as a puppy. But as soon as he got out of that puppy stage, he was bouncing off the walls. I'm like, what can I do? My wife couldn't walk him because he'd pull her arm socket out of the shoulder. So what I did was I found a device called a Springer, and I still use them today. You put it on a bike, and the dog can pull all they want in the wrong direction, and it keeps them from pulling you over. And basically, you can bike ride with your dog and give them all the action they want. So I took him for a mile around my neighborhood, the first ride I ever did with the dog, and he was the best dog in the world when we got home. I was like, did you sedate the dog? Did you give him doggy Prozac? What the heck did you do to the dog? I'm like, I just took him for a mile bike ride. And right there, my dog career was born. I fell in love with it. I'm like, this is what they need. This is what they love. And lo and behold, it enticed me to get the second husky. And I put a husky on each side of the bike, and they were just the best. And they were 2 males. I didn't know what I was doing. I got 2 males. They weren't fixed. And I had some fights between them. And then I learned that a tired dog is a good dog. As soon as I wore them out, the fighting already was curbed. The confrontation was curbed right there. And then I learned, hey, I got to fix these dogs. That helped curve it. And then I learned from one of the premier dog trainer, one of the best dog trainers in the world, who's no longer here anymore, just a dear friend of mine. He taught me about dogs. He was a police dog trainer, what they call Schutzen, protection work. And we did behavioral work with those 2 huskies, so they got along and lived a great life. And I was able to add a 3rd husky to a mix. I told you, once you get a husky, 1 husky, they're contagious. But seriously, for people that don't have time and don't have the money, don't want to invest in some, you know, I'm a little extreme, a lifestyle like I'm doing, just a regular bicycle. And today you can get electric bikes, which is even better in my opinion, but a regular bicycle with these Springer devices that they sell, it's called a Springer dog jogger. They sell them on Amazon for like $100. They can adapt to almost any bike. You put that on a bike, you put your dog on it. And I would recommend not using the leash lines that are included unless you look at it properly, because they're made to tear away from the bike. If you would come through like a tree, like something would split it, your dog would go one way, you would go the other. It wouldn't take you down. So they're breakaways, but I don't trust them because if they break away at the wrong time, your dog can get off leash. I just trust myself to not ride in areas where we're going to run into an obstacle that would split us. So I got a better harness than they give you with you. They give this cheap harness. It's just what it is. And they give you these breakaways. I just got my own tether and my own harness, and I put this thing on and it works like a champ. It's a huge spring, and you can see it on some of my videos because I still incorporate it into some of my designs. Springer dog jogger, and if you have a husky or 2, as Darlene was saying, you take that husky around the block in your neighborhood. Be careful though. You're introducing them to walking. They're going to probably pull because they've never been like this. Once they realize they can't get hurt by the bike, they're going to engage it, and they might go too hard, so they might rip their pads up. So you always want to start slowly. Now, if you put booties on them, that could be a problem in itself because they're gonna slip a little bit in it when they first start. Depending on their personality, how much they're going to engage this bike jogger, that could be problematic. So I suggest going down to a trail where they can grip it on a dirt or a grass kind of surface. Darlene, that would be a great idea. I may try that. 1 dog at a time though. That's my line, and that I learned long ago. Whenever you try something with a dog, just 1 dog at a time works the best, because once you train one of your dogs, because when you're trying to keep track of 2, if I put 2 on the bike that don't know it, it's going to be pandemonium. One pulling one way, even though they can't pull me over. I'm trying to teach that one dog, but the other might be going the other way and trying to teach them, and it just becomes a cluster. dogs, that well-trained dog, because that other dog, monkey see, monkey do, they'll usually, especially if the dogs know each other, they'll usually follow the other dog in the sense that, oh, that dog's doing it, I'm okay doing it. So a lot of times I'll take my best dog that is just most confident in anything, and they're all really good now. But Cyan and Nikita, because they're most active, I'll take them with a new dog, like when I taught Inyo, because she was apprehensive. She's like, I don't know about this bike wheel. And I had them close. I was using the Springer-like devices where they weren't out in front. The dogs were on the side. That's what the Springer does for you. Inyo wouldn't do it. And because of that, I put Cyan with her because Cyan was already trained. And Inyo was like looking at Cyan like, oh my gosh, I could do this. That's not going to hurt me. It gave her the boost of confidence she needed to get out there and do it. And all of a sudden she was a pro. So, and one time, usually dogs will take to a lot of stuff I do, very little training is required. They'll take to it the first time. The problem you may have is the dogs are going to overdo it. So you want to not let them go gung wild. That's what I'm saying. Like half a mile, maybe a mile, depending on the dog. And I started with a mile and I was fine. But depending on the dog and the surface you're running on, again, if you could start on grass or dirt or a little stone path, it's going to be much better than the asphalt, because my concern would be that they could nip their pads up if they're really assertive. So a dog like Inyo or Lola, starting off on the asphalt, it's not so bad, except for if they're not confident, they might be so intimidated that they might start pulling in one direction or the other, and that could put too much pressure on their pads, more on their claws, where you'll see them wear unevenly, and you could hit the bloodline, which again, it's not going to really hurt them, but you don't want to do that if you can help that, obviously. So real quick thing here, talking about dogs as they age. So I had a dog, my first husky, which I talked about, Czar, C-Z-A-R, not Zorro, but Czar. He was an all-white husky with blue eyes. He was 15 years old doing this stuff. Can you believe it? And it's incredible. My veterinarian was like, wow. So we put him on a drug that was popular back then, a dog drug called Rimadyl, anti-inflammatory, which they give a lot of dogs for a lot of different purposes. Arthritis was one of them. As he was 15, he was feeling the effects of arthritis, even though we were really mobile, and he wasn't like, he could get up really well. He could lay down really well. Wasn't like hampering him in that way. It was just walking where he affected him the most. But we gave him the Rimadyl, and I always want to give the dogs the least amount that we can. So I think we were giving him something like 2 a day, and I could be totally off, so don't bank on this. But what my vet said to me, I said, do you think we're giving him too much? We were trying to find the right dosage. And he said, let's try half, or whatever you think you should try, under the limit, of course, not over. Because these are serious drugs. You don't want to give them too much. So we tried the Rimadyl in the capacity of half. So I took him on the trail, and he got a little blood on his nail because he wasn't lifting his paw up as high because of the effects of the arthritis, 15 years old. So I talked to the vet and said, it didn't work. So he said, put him back on the dose that I originally prescribed, and let's see what happens. I put him on the originally prescribed dose, and he was fine. No, same exact place we went to. I wanted to test this, and he lifted his pulse up higher. Now, I couldn't physically see that with my eyes, but now if I would have had the cameras back then and I would have done slow motion, I might have been able to measure it better. But I measured it through his paws because he didn't drag his feet, so the claws weren't wearing down, and we didn't hit the bloodline. So really interesting stuff. I want to start this one more time for you. Sorry, it reset. So there's so many different ways to find all this out and to learn about it. And I've been there, and that's why I'm trying to share all this knowledge. But there's new stuff out on the market, and I don't really have any senior dogs. Lola, but she's just senior within the past year. So luckily, we don't need any of those meds or any of the management for inflammation and arthritis and other health related issues. Haley Stevens, my angel is 16 and a half, and we do about 2 to 3 miles a day, and she has prescribed Rimadyl twice a day. Do you recommend this medication? Great question, and so wonderful to hear her age. That's fantastic. So I don't have any. The only thing with Rimadyl, they say, and I'm not sure if the research shows this anymore, is I believe it can affect their liver over the course of time. So what they were recommending to me at the time when I used Rimadyl was to have their blood work done every so many months or whatever the veterinarian recommended, and then they could monitor how much it was affecting the dog's liver, because we didn't want to hurt the liver. And when they get older, all the organs are subject to all the age that they are. So Rimadyl worked perfectly for my guys. Now, that's a couple generations ago. In the last generation, I only needed it for Chase and Jag, I think it was. And what I used then, I actually didn't use anything for Princess, I don't think. But what I used then was shots of Adequin. So Adequin was originally designed for horses. So you got to remember the equine industry, because there's so much money in it. Race horses and everything involved with them, more money than dogs. Even though dogs is a multi-billion-dollar industry, horses are bigger. So that means they're going to have more research and more medications and more better ways to improve their quality of life, because they're racing them and they're trying to get them to live as long as possible, etc. So Adequin, from my understanding, what I recall, was developed over in Europe for horses. It came to America, and only a few veterinarians, a handful from what I understand, were using it for dogs. And my veterinarian was one of them. So at the time we started using Adequin, it wasn't, I don't know how they get it approved in veterinarian science for dogs, but I don't think it was fully approved. It did wonders for two of my dogs that were on it. I mean, it made them like puppies again. And now, from what I understand, they have Librela, I believe it is, which is supposedly the best state of the art out there. Now, I've read some people, because it's so new. I mean, these medications and supplements, whatever, have been thoroughly vetted to a certain extent. But when you put it out there and millions of people start using it, you can find out some dogs might have negative reactions. So I've heard of some having that. So my veterinarian would always tell me, whatever works for you, as long as we monitor it in the capacity that it should be monitored, monitor your dog, let them be on it. So especially at 16 and a half, that's amazing and so wonderful to hear. And the 2 and 3 miles, I mean, that's phenomenal. Getting that mobility for older dogs is what keeps them going, in my opinion. And a lot of dogs, because of the arthritis effects and health-related mobility issues, couldn't handle that 2 to 3 miles at that age. So they'll go to water therapy, like a water treadmill, and they have these veterinarian places that have these capabilities and have these big water treadmills. I've done it for one of my dogs, and it was amazing. So it basically, almost like you have no gravity. The water, if you're familiar with being in a pool, it takes all the weight and stress off the joints and the bones, so they can just get the movement and hopefully help stave off more of the arthritis and keep mobile, like I said, so the dog benefits from that. And they also have one thing, Haley, I didn't say, is the cold laser therapy, I believe it is, that can help. So we used to do that for one of my dogs too, which can help with arthritis and related mobility issues. If you haven't, ask about the Adequin and the Librela, if I'm saying it right. But again, if it's working for you, you might not need anything else. The water therapy is wonderful too as they get older, like I mentioned, and they don't have the mobility. So I did that for one of my dogs and had really good effects and that affected his whole life. I mean, he had a bad liver just from his age. And I believe that gave him like another year's worth of quality of life. That was Chase, because it was amazing. 6 months to a year. Dogs are amazing. And the technology all the different offerings we have today can really help the longevity of these dogs and their quality of life. So keep that in mind. Treadmill's right there with you. Another device that we can use to help their longevity and keep them really comfortable, especially in their senior years. But there's no end all be all. You've got to working with your veterinarian and with your experience and your dog's posture and their how they're doing says it all. So keep that in mind, and don't take what I say as the gospel for say. It's just for suggestions. Go out there, learn. Veterinarian's always the best place to start. Getting in some of these groups where people might have the same age dog you do or be going through the same thing. That's a good place to start too. And of course, measuring it yourself through different experiences, that helps too. Have new stuff out, like the Librellas, the latings work for different dogs. Like I'm talking about the cold laser therapy, the water therapy, etc., and even the treadmills here. So hope that answers everybody's question. We've been on for a while now. I know that. Haley Stevens, thank you for all the suggestions. I'll definitely ask about them with our vet. I'll look into the treadmill as well. She loves water swimming. Thank you so much. Yes, I can't tell you how cool the water treadmills are. And again, if your dog's doing 2 or 3 miles, I don't know if you need to change anything. They're comfortable. Just suggestions if you come to some other hurdles down the road that you want to try. Real quickly, I'll share, and I don't know if Melissa's watching now. Melissa used to part of the Wolf Driver pit crew. She's responsible for a lot of the website content you see and a lot of the videos out there. And she had an elderly dog. I think Daisy May might have been 17. I know she was 16 plus because she was old enough to get a people driver's license. LOL. Melissa would do everything. So she went to the place with the water treadmill and she did all the different therapies and just gave that dog the best quality of life. So I learned a lot from her experiences because it was truly incredible. And then I was able to use her knowledge and my learnings from her to better my older dogs and senior dogs generations from there on out. John Paul, yep, guess who made it in? Awesome. Great to see you. And thanks so much. So you're right at the tail end, but so good to see everybody out there today and love what we did here on the treadmill. And again, this dynamic with the 4 dogs keeps them really, dogs are competitive by nature. So that just really adds to the whole aspect. I'm Wolf Driver. I'm going to sign off here because we're running out of time here. I really appreciate everybody's participation today, tuning in. Don't forget, I'm always posting. I've been really active out there and we're doing stuff like you've never seen before. Like I'm the dog robot, RoboTogo. I've got some new, engagement for the dogs. We're going to be using the RC car with the fake animals on it. We're going to be doing some sound stuff, some animal calls, got all kinds of stuff happening. So it's really exciting stuff that you can do with your dogs, or you can live vicariously through me and enjoy it. Wolf Driver, I'm going to sign off here. Have a wonderful